The earliest known film based on lycanthropy is the 1913 silent film The Werewolf, which told the tale of Kee On Ee, a Navajo woman becoming a werewolf. Unfortunately, this film has been lost to time, as the last known copy was destroyed in a fire in 1924. Werewolves in cinema have come a long way since this film. Today, let's explore some old-school werewolf films that definitely influence the way werewolves look in Hollywood today. But before we continue, tap on that subscribe button, as it is just a tiny tap to you, but means the whole world to us. Thank you for being our valued subscriber. The Wolfman. The death of his brother convinces Larry Talbot to return to Llanwelly, Wales, and reconcile with his father, John. He falls for a local woman named Gwen, who's already engaged to a man. Though Gwen refuses to date him, she invites him along with a couple of friends to get their fortunes told. Their night takes a turn for the worse when a wolf attacks him and kills Gwen's friend. The wolf turns out to be a werewolf, and Larry soon begins turning into one because of the attack. Afraid of hurting Gwen, Larry tells his father that he's a werewolf. John, understandably, does not believe him and ties him up, thinking he's delusional. When the moon rises, Larry turns into a werewolf and John is forced to kill his own son. This is the crux of the 1941 film The Wolfman, directed by George Wagner. This Universal Monsters film attracted the attention of Bela Lugosi himself, and he campaigned for the lead role. Though Lon Chaney Jr. landed the main role, Bela Lugosi was invited to play a minor role. One of the best Universal Monsters films, The Wolfman is a classic tragedy that perfectly captures the gloomy atmosphere of the plot. The Howling. LA TV news anchor Karen White is asked to bait serial killer Eddie Quist, who has an obsession with her. Karen agrees and he's captured, but Karen suffers from amnesia because of the traumatic ordeal. Her therapist, George Wagner, recommends a visit to the colony, a secluded resort. What Karen doesn't know is that the colony is full of werewolves who can turn whenever they want to, and Eddie is also a part of the colony. She calls her friend Terry and Terry's boyfriend Chris to help break her out, after her husband Bill is converted into a werewolf as well. Chris and Karen manage to flee, and Karen starts a worldwide broadcast to warn everybody about werewolves. She turns into a werewolf to prove her point and is shot by Chris. Unfortunately, people don't take her seriously, believing it to be done by special effects. Based on Gary Brandner's novel of the same name, The Howling was directed by Joe Dante and released in 1981. If you liked Gremlins, you have this film to thank, as it pushed Warner Bros. To hire Dante. Though the film has quite a slow build-up, Dante's direction and the special effects department make up for it. The Curse of the Werewolf. The cruel Marquis Siniestro has his jailer's daughter thrown in jail after she refuses his sexual advances. In jail, a forgotten crazy prisoner who had been growing wolf fur rapes her and dies. When she is released the next day, she kills Siniestro and flees to the forest, where she is found by scholar Don Alfredo Corledo and his housekeeper Teresa. The duo care for her, but she dies on Christmas Day after giving birth to her child. Teresa and Alfredo bring up the baby and name him Leon. Leon, thanks to the circumstances of his birth, turns out to be a werewolf, but Alfredo keeps his turnings at bay by giving him enough love, the only thing that can deter a human from becoming a wolf. But a bird has to leave its nest, and the day comes when Leon has to leave to find work. Things take a turn for the worse when Leon's love affair sours, and Alfredo is forced to kill the child he brought up with all his heart. Terence Fisher adapted Guy Andore's The Werewolf of Paris in 1961, with Clifford Evans in the lead. Unlike a popular story, where a werewolf bite turns a human into a werewolf, this story follows the old folklore idea that whoever is conceived under unpleasant conditions and is born on Christmas is cursed with lycanthropy. If you like films that are dense with story and hate action and bloodshed, this is the film for you. An American Werewolf in London. Trekking across the North York moors, Jack Goodman and David Kessler are attacked by a werewolf. While Jack does not survive the ordeal, David wakes up 3 weeks later in a hospital in London. Jack's ghost informs him that they were attacked by a werewolf and asks him to kill himself before the next full moon to make sure he doesn't kill anybody. David doesn't listen though, and ignores his friend's warning. To nobody's surprise, at the next full moon, David goes on a killing spree. The next day, after unsuccessfully trying to kill himself, David transforms again, but is shot dead by cops. An international co-production of the United Kingdom and the United States, An American Werewolf in London was written and directed by John Landis, with David Naughton playing the werewolf. The film's makeup by Rick Baker is truly extraordinary. Even the Academy believed it to be, as they gave the inaugural award for Best Makeup to Baker. If not for the makeup, then you have to watch the film for its exceptional transformation scene. The Company of Wolves. Neil Jordan's The Company of Wolves is a 1984 gothic anthology film with many stories interwoven within the main story. The main story is about Rosaline, an imaginative girl who dreams that she lives inside a fairy tale, with her superstitious grandmother who warns her not to trust a man with eyebrows that meet. True to the warning, Rosaline meets a hunter with meeting eyebrows who also happens to be a werewolf. Though initially wary, her desire towards him leads her to become a werewolf too. The lines between dreams and real life begin to fade, as wolves start entering Rosaline's house and she wakes up with a startle. There are 4 embedded stories in the film, and each unfolds as characters within the main story narrating it. They are about a young groom who turns into a werewolf and returns years later to kill his bride for marrying another person, a young man who makes a nasty deal with the devil, a young enchantress who turns a nobleman and his wedding party into wolves, and a female werewolf who is cared for by a compassionate priest. For the entirety of the film, only 2 wolves were used and the rest were Belgian shepherd dogs with dyed fur. The production design in this film is noteworthy and inspired Stanley Kubrick to hire Anton Furst, the production designer, for Full Metal Jacket. A must-watch if you hate how CGI has ruined films. Bad Moon. Photojournalist Ted Harrison is converted into a werewolf after a werewolf attacked him and killed his girlfriend Marjorie. He moved to a trailer in the woods, but later decided to move in with his sister Janet and nephew Brett to avoid getting caught for his recent killing spree. A rivalry begins between Brett's dog Thor, who just wants to protect his family, and Ted, who wants to frame Thor for his attacks and murders. Ted is almost successful as he manages to send Thor to the dog pound, but eventually Janet finds out about Ted's condition and Brett releases Thor, who runs to the aid of his mistress. He kills Ted, who accepts his death, and together, Janet, Thor, and Brett heal from the ordeal. Bad Moon is written and directed by Eric Red and is inspired by Wayne Smith's 1992 novel, Thor. Many changes were made though, one of the major ones being that Thor's family consisted of 2 parents and 3 kids. A delight to dog lovers, Bad Moon is filled with cheesy lines, but is thoroughly entertaining. Wolf. Will Randall runs over a large black wolf and while trying to help it, gets bitten. Back at his publishing job, he is demoted from editor-in-chief while his protege Stuart Swinton gets his role. Soon, things begin to change though, as his senses heighten. He catches his wife cheating with Swinton and bites him angrily. He also begins a relationship with his boss, Raymond Alden's daughter, Laura, and organizes a mutiny of riders against Swinton, which results in Swinton getting fired. Randall gets his previous job back, but realizes that something is wrong after he wakes up one day covered in blood, with no recollection of the previous night. A pagan expert deduces that he is a werewolf and gives him an amulet to stop the transformation. Meanwhile, Swinton attacks Laura as revenge for losing his job, and Will abandons the amulet to turn into a wolf and save Laura. Swinton is killed, and Will runs away into the woods. Starring the incredible actors Jack Nicholson, James Spader, and Michelle Pfeiffer, Wolf was directed by Mike Nichols and released in 1994. Nicholson was very involved in making the film, as he wanted to do it with screenwriter Jim Harrison for 12 years. Wolf is extremely underrated, as the wonderful acting and well-knit plot should have placed it right at the top of Lycanthropy films. The Werewolf. Morgan Chambers and Emery Forrest are distinguished doctors who have found a cure that could help a select minority to survive what they believe to be an imminent nuclear holocaust. The only side effect is lycanthropy. In an expression of horrible research etiquette, the 2 doctors inject the serum into Duncan Marsh, the victim of a car crash. Mark wakes up amnesiac and stumbles into Mountain Crest, a small rural town. There he kills Joe, a robber, and seeks the help of Dr. Jonas Gilchrist, the local doctor. His wife and son, who had been searching for him, track him down, and Duncan asks to be imprisoned to make sure he doesn't hurt more people. Chambers and Forrest track him down too in order to kill him so that they won't be held liable for his murders. When they break into his prison, he kills them and runs away, but doesn't get far as he is shot by the sheriff's posse. Fred F. Sears' The Werewolf was released as a double feature with Earth vs. the Flying Saucers in 1956. So before Barbenheimer, there was The Werewolf vs. the Flying Saucers. If you like werewolf films to have more drama than horror or action, turn on The Werewolf. Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, starring Lon Chaney Jr. as Larry Talbot and Bela Lugosi as Frankenstein's monster. Roy William Neal's Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman pits two pop monsters against each other. After grave robbers remove the wolfsbane Larry was buried with, the full moon revives him and he goes on a killing spree. To cure himself of his condition, he seeks the help of Maliva, a gypsy woman, who takes him to Vassaria, a small village, to take a look at Dr. Frankenstein's old notes. In the ruins of Frankenstein's castle, he finds Frankenstein's monster encased in ice. He frees him, but the monster has no idea where his notes are. Together they approach Elsa, Ludwig Frankenstein's daughter. Meanwhile, Dr. Manning, a concerned doctor who had treated Larry after his first killing spree after returning from the dead, asks him to commit to a mental institution. Larry refuses. Elsa and Manning team up and decide to kill Larry and the monster. They agree to help Larry, and during the procedure, Manning, overcome by curiosity to see the monster at full strength, revives it. The monster tries to kidnap Elsa, but is stopped by Larry in his wolf form. One of the villagers had come up with a smart idea to bomb the dam over the Frankenstein estate, and as the water begins to flood, Elsa and Manning escape while Larry and Frankenstein's monster are swept away. Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman had a truly disastrous preview screening, and the audience laughed every time the monster spoke. So, all of Lugosi's lines were cut from the film. There are definitely a whole lot of plot holes in the film, and the characters are not well developed, but the acting and makeup are both spot on. Wolfen. Former New York Police Department Captain Dewey Wilson is brought back to the job and paired with criminal psychologist Rebecca Neff to investigate the brutal murders of Christopher Vanderveer, a high-profile magnate, Pauline, his wife, and his bodyguard. Dewey's investigation soon gets him and Rebecca embroiled in a conflict with the Wolfen, shape-shifting wolf spirits who the Native Americans believe to be gods. The Wolfen only hunt the elderly or sickly, and only if their grounds and their exposure are threatened. If they feel threatened enough, they would start killing humans who are neither sick nor old. Knowing that he stands no chance against them, Wilson manages to communicate that he's not a threat to them and blames the attack on terrorists to cover up the case. An adaptation of the 1978 novel, The Wolfen by Whitley Strieber, this film is directed by Michael Wadley and was released in 1981. James Horner, the composer who worked on Aliens, also contributed to the film, and towards the end of the movie, you can hear a bit of music that Horner reused in Aliens. Though not in the traditional sense, Wolfen is a great werewolf film that mixes Native American folklore with an ecological message that is relevant to this day. Marvelous verdict. These were some of the best of old-school werewolf movies. Did we miss out on any of your favorites? Let us know in the comments below. And if you liked the video, you know what to do. Leave us a thumbs up. We'll be back soon with more awesome stuff, and until then, take care and goodbye.